Hey, what's up YouTube? Really excited to bring you this video because I made over $70,000 betting on sports in September, and that's what I'm going to be going through, strategies and tips for making money betting on sports and how I was able to do this. Basically, all of my picks are given out for free, on Twitter or Twitch. A lot of people have asked me, can you do full-length YouTube videos with your picks? But that's a little tougher because I never know when the line's going to move or odds could change, a player could get ruled out. So I really prefer to stick to Twitch for live streams and then also to Twitter. But anyways, the month started out pretty brutal. You can see I was down over $20,000. But again, as a sports bettor, I really think like an investor. I try to have a long-term, mindset. I know not every single day is going to be a winner. So I stick with the process and was able to end up over $70,000 on the month. And honestly, that's just how it is sometimes. Like there was a month in the summer when you only had MLB going on, where in June, I think it was, I lost like $5,000, $6,000. In May, I made money. In June, I did the exact same thing, my exact same betting process. I lost $6,000, was on a horrible losing streak. And then right away in early July, I had some huge wins that put me up over $70,000 on the month. So long story short, so many people, I've placed thousands of bets this year. So many people love to zone in on individual bets that win or lose. But the truth is, as a sports bettor, everybody can win a bet. It's really about having a long-term focus and trying to make money long-term. But anyways, we're gonna get into strategies, stuff like that. But if you enjoy this type of content, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment any questions. I give out a ton of sports betting content for free every single day. I love helping people beat the sports books. So any questions you have, also any video ideas you have, I'm always looking for new good content ideas. Please feel free to, comment all of that sort of stuff. But anyways, this month of September, obviously football returned, which made it pretty easy to make money. In my opinion, football is one of the best sports to bet on. But going into October, I'm up over $220,000. October is an amazing month for sports betting. The NHL starts, college basketball, NBA also start. So more sports means there's going to be more profitable bets, right? Obviously the summer when you only have baseball going on, it's not exactly the best time to be betting on sports, and having a losing month like I had in June, it's not particularly surprising. But the first thing I wanted to mention is the strategies we're going to be discussing, they can be applied to any sports book, right? I don't know where you're located, but in the US, all states have different sports books. In Kansas, there's different sports books from in California. All these states have different books. I always encourage, if you're just starting to bet on sports, you want to use as many books as possible. I mean, you can see my results right here. This bet tracker that I use is called Pickett Sports. It's a verified bet tracker. Basically what it does is it reads in, it syncs with your sports books, reads in all your bets, shows you your profit and loss. So I use a ton of different books, right? Depending on where I'm at, I'm initially from Virginia. So if I'm at home in Virginia, I'll use different sports books. Then let's say I have a bachelor party coming up in October in Texas. Obviously, I'm going to place bets when I'm in Texas. I'm there for the Georgia versus Texas game. But regardless, I use a bunch of different sports books. Sometimes it changes up based on, where I'm located. But regardless, on Fliff, this is a sports book that's legal basically everywhere in the US. I'm up over $96,000. I've run insanely hot on Fliff. There's been a ton of value, but the run I'm on Fliff is pretty incredible since football season started. On FanDuel, I'm losing money this year. I don't really know why. I'm just cold on FanDuel. Last year, the year before, I made money. So I kind of attribute that to variance. You're going to run hot on some books. You're going to run cold on some books. That's just kind of how it is. It's all about, your long-term, your total ROI. So anyways, the strategies we're going to discuss on Underdog Fantasy, PrizePicks, Betr, Fliff, FanDuel, you can use them on any sports book in general. Depending on where you're located, you may use different books than me, but hopefully this video is still helpful to you. The final thing I wanted to mention is a lot of the strategies we're going to discuss can be applied to any sport. Obviously in September with college football, NFL starting, I did a lot of NFL bets, NFL parlays, NFL fantasy plays on sites like PrizePicks. But with NBA returning, obviously I'm going to bet on basketball. I bet on tennis. I bet on esports. To be completely honest, I don't really care what I'm betting on as long as I'm getting an edge in making money. There can be really sharp, profitable bets in tennis, esports, whatever. I don't really care that much about the sport if I'm being completely honest. But again, first tip I wanted to mention is sign up for as many possible sports books as you can, okay? Like, I've used over 50 sports books. I traveled to Colorado when Colorado legalized sports betting. I think they were the second state to. I literally went to Colorado to sign up for the sports books and do the deposit bonuses. A new sports book launched in Colorado. At the time, it was called Sports Illustrated. They had a 7.5K risk-free bet. That sign-up promo alone, a 7.5K risk-free bet, right? You place a bet for $7,500. If it loses, you get your money back. Insanely profitable. That paid for the entire trip. But the main reason, aside from just taking advantage of promos, sign-up bonuses, one reason you want to use multiple books is in sports betting, all these books set their own prices, their own odds. So for example, one play I locked in for Thursday Night Football between the Falcons and the Bucks. The game hasn't started, so if this bet loses, hopefully you don't think I'm an idiot, but was Bijan Robinson over 24.5 receiving yards. If you look at every other sports book, Bet Online had his line at 30.5. PrizePicks had his line at like 29.5. All these books set their own lines. I got Bijan Robinson's over 24.5. So if he has 25 receiving yards, my over would win on this sports book called Fliff, which is legal, again, basically in every state. So Bijan has 25 receiving yards, I'll win my bet on Fliff. On Bet Online, on PrizePicks, I'd lose. So these things may seem small, and it doesn't really matter, you know, if you're only placing one bet a week for $20 with your friends. But if you're really trying to make money sports betting, you got to be getting over 24.5 as opposed to over 30.5 when you can find discrepancies between sports books. All these books set their own lines. You know, just think about it. It's like if you were trying to be a day trader and instead of buying a stock at $24.50, you had to pay $30.50. It's going to be really hard to make money long term if you have to pay, 30% more than everybody else does. So literally finding value using multiple books, all these books set their own odds, their own lines, is the first step. It is sports betting 101. If you want to make money, you need to be using multiple sports books. And if you have any questions about sports books, I'll include my email in the description. Email me anytime or comment any questions you have about any of these sports books we go through in this video. So the first strategy we're going to discuss is taking advantage of really profitable promos. And this is near and dear to my heart because when I started gambling, I just left college. I didn't have a lot of money. A lot of my coworkers were starting to bet on sports. I wanted to get involved. And they told me, yo, these promos are pretty low risk. They're super profitable, have a really high ROI. And, you don't need to bet a lot of money to have success with them. So that's what I started doing. And I realized, wow, even just betting these promos, I can make a few $1,000s a month if I'm picking the correct promos, the profitable promos, and I'm using multiple books. I can make a few $1,000s profit just playing sportsbook promotions, which is crazy, but it's true. All of these sports books, FanDuel, DraftKings, and fantasy sites like PrizePicks and Underdog Fantasy, they're commodity businesses. They all do the same thing. They just take action, and then if your play wins, they pay you out. They're commodity businesses. There's really no difference between FanDuel and DraftKings. So the way they try to appeal to bettors and market themselves, a lot of times is by running promos. So for example, on this site called PrizePicks, which is a fantasy platform that's super popular, has grown a lot in popularity, they do a promo called Taco Tuesday. So every single Tuesday, they'll discount a bunch of players' lines. And this past Tuesday, I'm recording this video on a Thursday, and I just saw my play on Bijan Robinson lost that I used in the last clip, but whatever. I mean, every sports bettor, you're going to have winning bets, losing bets, winning days, losing days. So hopefully you don't read too much into that. But anyways, they were running a discount on Michael King. They were reducing his line from 5.5 to 3.5 strikeouts. So if King had 4 or 5 strikeouts, you wouldn't win if you bet his over 4.5, but if you bet his over 3.5, the discounted line, of course your wager would win. So I gave out a play for this on Twitter, and you can see it ended up cashing a bunch of people were able to tail it. And it's the same thing. They also had a discount on Wilson. I gave out a slip for that. I believe it was on live stream. That ended up cashing. And again, like, these promos are easy value. It's the easiest money you're gonna make sports betting. It's not just PrizePicks that runs promos. For example, every single Wednesday and Sunday, another fantasy platform called Sleeper, they'll run discounted lines. This past weekend in the NFL, they had Saquon, they had Nico Collins. I gave out plays for those. Both of them ended up cashing. So long story short, like, there's low-hanging fruit in sports betting. These $10 super high ROI bets where they're discounting a player, you know, they may not seem that impactful, but if you're using a variety of sports books like I am, Fliff, PrizePicks, FanDuel, DraftKings, Underdog Fantasy, all these books run promos on a weekly basis or daily basis. Some of them run deposit matches, stuff like that. You know, the money stacks up quickly. The profit stacks up quickly. So if you're using a bunch of books, especially if you're a lower bankroll bettor or you're just starting to get your feet wet in sports betting, I recommend just bet the promos. Take advantage of the super ROI, you know, the low-hanging fruit that these books are gonna offer you. So we just went through promos and I showed you some discounted projections for PrizePicks Taco Tuesday. So why don't we start out with PrizePicks? PrizePicks is a fantasy book, and there's 4 main fantasy books that I use: Underdog Fantasy, Betr, PrizePicks, and Dabble. And the reason I want to discuss these first is you can see they're pretty impactful in terms of my profit and loss for this year. What's nice about fantasy books like PrizePicks is they're legal in most states. Most people have access to them. If you're in California or in Texas, you don't have access to FanDuel or DraftKings, the main sports books in the US, but you do have access to fantasy books, which can be super profitable. So you can see on these fantasy books, Underdog Fantasy, I'm up over $15,000 this year. Dabble, another $30,000. And then on Betr, I'm up over $70,000. So these fantasy books can be super profitable, but they're a little unique. And the reason these fantasy books are unique is they have fixed payouts. So what I mean by that is on PrizePicks, any 2-pick entry, it doesn't matter what 2 picks you select, NBA, MLB, NFL, whatever. Any 2-pick entry, you're gonna get a 3x payout. So you're putting down 100 to win 300, 200 in profit. It doesn't matter if you take a player's over or they're under. As you can kind of see in this little video, we switch him from an over to an under. We're gonna get the same payout. That's really different from a traditional sports book like FanDuel. If you look at FanDuel, Kyle McCord, if you take his over in passing yards, you're getting plus 140 odds. You're betting 100 to win 140 in profit. On the other hand, his under is minus 188 odds. You have to bet 188 to win 100 in profit. So you're getting a much better payout on the over because the under is the favored outcome. So the strategy for beating fantasy books, which are super, super profitable, is you want to compare the lines on fantasy books to sports books. So I follow, again, a super data-driven approach to my sports betting. I don't bet with my gut. I don't bet with my emotions. That's what 99% of sports bettors do. Most sports bettors lose money. I don't do that. I just follow the data. So if you look at this play I included in my PrizePicks slip that I gave out on Twitter, it was Carrington over 12.5 points. So this was a line available on PrizePicks, and I thought the over was a really sharp pick. So first and foremost, if you looked at Carrington's line on every other sports book, most of the other books had her line at 13.5. But then you can see some sports books still had her line at 12.5. Like Circa. Circa's known to be a really sharp book. They're experts in setting lines. It's a book, you know, they're taking wagers. They have really good models. It's a huge sports book. They're experts in setting lines. They had Carrington's over 12.5 points as a minus 145 favorite. So the sports book Circa is telling you through their odds that, hey, we think Carrington is much more likely to go over. So even if you don't use Circa, it's a really sharp sports book known for having really accurate lines. You still want to put some weight into their odds. Same with every other sports book. There's 200 books in the US. All these sports books are data points on where should the line be set. The same way a stock price represents the market valuation of a company, right? When people say, oh, Google's a $3 trillion company, that's based on their stock price. So stock price reflects company value. It's the same thing in sports betting. If all of the sports books have Carrington's over heavily favored, they're telling you, hey, based on our models, all the bets we're seeing, in the market, these books aren't stupid. If all the sharp, profitable bettors are betting her over, they'll move the line higher, or they'll make the over a bigger favorite, right? Maybe they move the over from -145 to -160, making the over an even bigger favorite, right? A -200 favorite means a 2-to-1 favorite, 2/3 to win. -300, that team is still favored, or that bet is still favored, but now it's a 3-to-1 favorite, 75% implied win probability. So basically for Carrington, sportsbooks either had her line higher at 13.5, or they had her line at 12.5 with the over heavily favored. So I'm using information in the market. Even if I'm not in Colorado, I'm not using Circa Sportsbook, I still want to look at their lines as a source of information. They're telling me, hey, her over's heavily favored, so that's a sharp pick on PrizePicks. PrizePicks would give me the same payout if I take her over or her under, so I want to be on the over because the entire betting market, all the sports books, have her over heavily favored, her over 12.5 points, or they have her line higher in the first place at 13.5. So these fantasy books are super exploitable because they have fixed payouts, and that's very different from a traditional sports book. Now, one thing I want to mention is you may say, hey, why are you up so much money on Betr, $70,000? You're only up $15,000, let's say, on Underdog Fantasy. And the reason is limits. So if you look right here, you'll see on Underdog Fantasy, I can only bet $50. That is the max bet size that they give me. Historically, like 2 years ago, I made a lot more money on Underdog Fantasy. I started using Underdog in 2022, in late 2022, around football season. And I made, you can see, almost $50,000 because I was able to bet $2,000, whatever. As soon as the sportsbook realized, as soon as Underdog Fantasy realized, hey, this guy's beating us, he's taking our money, they cut down my bet size initially from 2,000 to 1,000, then 1,000 to 500, 500 to 250, 250 to 100. That's just kind of part of the game as a sharp, profitable bettor. Some books are going to cut down your bet size. Obviously, even with $50 bet sizes, I've still been able to be pretty successful on Underdog Fantasy. I'm up over $15,000 this year with just $50 max betting limits, but it kind of sucks. It's the same thing on Dabble. Dabble's a new fantasy book that launched. Again, PrizePicks, Underdog, Dabble, Betr. All these books set their own lines. Sometimes there's more value on Dabble, so I place more plays on Dabble. Sometimes there's more value on PrizePicks. But Dabble, I started using it in January. I made $33,000 in the month. I was able to bet $2,000 a play. After making 33 grand in a month, which I'd say was worth it, they cut down my bet size to $50 a play, so I just don't use it as much. So a couple more things I want to mention about these fantasy books before we move on to traditional sports books like FanDuel and DraftKings is they don't have the same payout always. So for example, it's really important to understand for each platform what's the optimal number of picks to go with. On Underdog Fantasy, they give you a 6x payout on 3-mans. So for a 3-pick entry, you're putting down 100 to win 600. On PrizePicks, they're super cheap. They only give you a 5x payout. So assuming Underdog and PrizePicks have the exact same lines, you're getting a 5x payout on PrizePicks, a 6x payout on Underdog. If you want to run a 3-man, you obviously want to run your 3-man on Underdog. There's not a single profitable bettor playing 3-mans on PrizePicks because they're absolutely horrible. They're giving you a horrible payout. And the difference between getting a 5x payout and a 6x payout makes a huge difference long-term in terms of your ROI. So it's really important to understand for all these different fantasy platforms, what's the optimal number of picks to go with, which I have kind of highlighted here on the screen. Now, the second thing I wanted to mention is because these fantasy books have fixed payouts, you can exploit what's called correlation. So you can't do this on traditional sports books, but I'll give you a simple example. In the Vikings game, Sam Darnold's the quarterback, Justin Jefferson's the main target, main receiver. If Sam Darnold goes under in passing yards, then obviously Justin Jefferson's going to be more likely to go under in receiving yards. So even though the odds on FanDuel are the same on Justin Jefferson, his over and his under, because these picks are in the same game, you're going to get a different payout if you take Jefferson over, Darnold under, right? You can see you're going to get, if you take one over, one under, Darnold under, Jefferson over, you'll get a plus 359 payout on your parlay. Whereas if you play both unders, because these plays are positively correlated, you're going to get a plus 155 payout. So the reason this is really important is on fantasy books, again, they have fixed payouts. So if you take a player's over or their under, you'll get the same payout. So let me give you a simple example of how to exploit correlation. This example is from the MLB, and you can see I had two pretty big wins. I forget exactly when this game was, but I gave out these plays, as usual, for free. A bunch of people tailed it. I had Cal over 1.5 hits and JP Crawford over 1.5 hits. So on Betr, regardless of what type of slip we go with, if you're playing one regular play and two boosted plays, you're going to get a 20x payout. So if I would have taken Cal, a player on the Mariners, or a player on a different team, I'd be getting the same payout. So stacking MLB overs and hits is positively correlated. If Cal goes over in hits, that means the Mariners probably had a pretty good scoring game, and JP Crawford's going to be more likely to go over in hits as well. Right? Like if the Mariners are having a great game, they're getting on base, Cal's going to be more likely to go over. They're having more at-bats. JP Crawford's going to be more likely to go over in hits. So these two picks are positively correlated. We have an advantage pairing them together in a slip. So long story short, there's tons of correlations for esports, for NFL, for baseball that you can exploit on PrizePicks. So for example, that previous Taco Tuesday play I showed you, we were on King over in strikeouts, Azuna under in hits plus runs plus RBIs, right? If Michael King is getting a ton of strikeouts, pitching a good game, then Azuna, a hitter on the opposing team, is going to be more likely to go under. So those plays are positively correlated. And on PrizePicks for a 4-man, they didn't add a payout shift. So I'd get the same payout if I took Azuna's over or his under. And what I will say is some of these books, you got to get a little creative, because you'll notice on PrizePicks, depending on what slip you included in, if you try to stack in Darnold, his under, with Jefferson's under, PrizePicks will add in a payout shift. They'll reduce your payout. PrizePicks typically gives you a 10x on 4-pick power plays. They're going to reduce it to a 7x payout because you're stacking correlated plays, wide receiver under, quarterback under. So long story short, all that means is you need to be a little careful on PrizePicks when you're trying to correlate plays, or on Betr, to not get these payout shifts, because these sports books, sometimes these fantasy books, will try to reduce your payout if you're trying to correlate plays. So you have to pick your spots well. So the next strategy I want to discuss that I absolutely love using, this is one of the first betting strategies I used when I started gambling, is called arbitrage betting. So I've talked about this in other videos, but again, all sports books set their own odds. And sometimes out of the millions of odds across sports books, every single sports book has like 50,000 lines up at any given time. Sometimes two sports books get so out of sync, they have such different odds, where you can play the over on one book, the under on a different book, and guarantee a profit. So you can hedge and guarantee that you're gonna make money. So this is called arbitrage betting. You'll see tons of people having success with arbitrage betting on Twitter and talking about it. So I'll give you a simple example of an arbitrage bet. And again, when you're arbitrage betting, you're making risk-free money. This is a low-risk strategy if you're doing it right. But because these opportunities, you're day trading the books to guarantee a profit, sometimes they can move pretty quick. So knowing how to navigate the sports books, get to these arbitrage plays quickly is really important. So for example, you look right here, you can see Geno Smith over 34.5 passing attempts is plus 120 on this sports book called Fliff. Another book, Betr, has the over at minus 131. So these books are super different. One book has the over at plus 120, another book minus 131 with the under at minus 104. So basically what you can do is pull up what's called an arbitrage calculator. And what this calculator will tell you is, hey, if you bet $500 on the over, which I put in for the Fliff side, Fliff, they have a max bet size of $500. So assuming you bet the max, maybe you don't bet the max, what the calculator tells you is, yo, bet 560.78 on the under at minus 104 odds, and you'll make 39.22 in risk-free profit. So it won't matter if Gino has 35 or more, if the over wins, or if the under wins, it won't matter. Regardless of the result, you're gonna make 39.22 in risk-free profit. So that's arbitrage betting. When two books get super out of sync, you bet the over, you bet the under on a different book, you guarantee a profit, you're hedging for a win, and you'll see tons of people talking about this strategy on Twitter. I have one tip for arbitrage betting aside from just moving quickly, knowing how to navigate the sports books, and that's round the calculator, right? You don't want to sketch out the sports books. So what I recommend doing, not that it's the end of the world, but I always recommend just round your bet size from 560.78, just round it down to 560. All that's gonna do is slightly change your profit if Gino goes over versus under. If you're betting less on the under, if Gino goes over, you'll make slightly more than 39.22. If he goes under, you'll make slightly less than 39.22. But anyways, that's basically the main tip I have. So we can go through this example of an arbitrage play, and then we'll move on to other strategies. So the reason I loved arbitrage betting when I started to gamble is it is literally risk-free money if you're doing it correctly, which is absolutely insane. You know, when I started sports betting, I was just starting my career working in Pennsylvania. I was scared about losing money. So arbitrage betting was a way to make money, grow my sports betting bankroll in a risk-free way. And you may look at this Gino arb and be like, who cares? You're making $39 in risk-free profit. I see people every single day hitting $1 to win 1,000 parlays. And I mean, sure, whatever. Every single day, someone's gonna win a crazy parlay on social media. You're never gonna see the people who are losing. This is a guaranteed way to make money. And even though this arbitrage play, it's only making $39 risk-free, these bets only take maybe 20, 30 seconds to lock in. You're just day trading the books. So sure, whatever, you're only making $39 risk-free, but go hit 10 arbitrage bets in an hour and you're up $390 of risk-free profit, and you get your money back the second the game ends. So long story short, arbitrage betting, it's a super powerful, sharp strategy. A ton of pro sports bettors, syndicates use this exact strategy. But I figured what may be helpful to just kind of break down how are you making a risk-free 39 bucks is going through the math. So let's say we bet $500 on Gino's over at plus 120 on Fliff, and then we hedge, we bet his under at minus 104 on Betr. Betr has a sports book. They also have a fantasy site. Again, as an arbitrage bettor, you want to use as many sports books as possible. More books, more arbitrage opportunities. You never know which book is going to have the best arbitrage plays on a given day. So let's say Gino goes over. If he goes over, we win our bet on Fliff. We bet 500 at plus 120 odds, so we're going to win 600 profit. On Betr, I said round the calculator from 560.78 down to 560. So we win 600 on Fliff, we lose 560 on Betr, we're up $40. That's $40 of risk-free profit. Now, with arbitrage, you're always gonna win one bet, lose one bet. So if Gino goes over, we win our bet on Fliff, we lose on Betr. It sounds crazy betting an over and an under, you're hedging for a profit. If Gino goes over, we make $40 in risk-free profit. On the other hand, if Gino goes under, well, we're gonna lose $500 on Fliff. We bet 500 at plus 120, so if Gino has 34 or less, we lose our over on Fliff. On Betr, we win 560 times 100 over 104, right? We're betting 560 at minus 104 odds, so we win 538.46 in profit. So we're up a net of $38.46. We just made 38 bucks risk-free. Again, the slight difference is $40 risk-free profit if Gino goes over, $38.46 if he goes under, or just because we rounded the arbitrage calculator, we rounded down on Betr from 560.78 to 560 since we don't want to sketch out the sports books. So, you know, when I started sports betting, I would literally get home from work, start looking for arbitrage bets. I did this manually. Right? Now there's software for it. OddsJam has a betting tool for arbitrage. I used to get home from work at 5 p.m. I would pull up the sports books, look all night long for these arbitrage plays manually to make a risk-free $10 here, $20 there, $30 there. By the end of the night, maybe I'm up $200 risk-free. That's really significant, right? That's a lot of money, especially when you're just leaving college, entering the workforce. It really helped me, you know, get some savings that I could do a lot of things with, like travel and stuff like that. But anyways, arbitrage betting, really great low-risk strategy that I highly recommend. Now, another thing I wanted to talk about, another low-risk strategy that I love doing is middle betting. The same way all sportsbooks set their own odds, they also set their own lines. So I explained this play in another video, so I'll keep it brief, but DJU, his passing yards line was 209.5 on Fliff, 192.5 on FanDuel. So you have a 17-yard discrepancy. So many sports bettors think in terms of betting the over or betting the under. But it really depends, like, where's the line set? I think we all agree if Patrick Mahomes' line were 800 passing yards, we want to take the under. If it's 15 yards, we'd want to be on the over. So it really is devils in the details. Where is the line being set? So essentially when you're middle betting, you're playing books at different lines. You're always going to win one bet and at least one bet. So for example, in this middle play, I played DJ's under 209.5 on Fliff. I played his over 192.5 on FanDuel. If he had 193 to 209 passing yards, a 17-yard gap, then I'm going to win both bets. So middles, I call them the low-risk lottery tickets of sports betting. If DJ had 193 to 209 yards, I would win both bets. And you can see that's actually happened twice this season. This middle bet won. He had exactly 201 yards, so I win my over 192.5 on FanDuel. I also win my under 209.5 on Fliff, right? I win both bets, the over for DJU and the under. And again, in his first 4 games, he fell between 193 and 209 in 2 games. So middles, they may seem like there's no chance he ends up between 193 and 209. But you have to remember a player's passing yards line, it kind of follows like a bell curve. DJ, he's not going to throw for 0 passing yards. He's not going to throw for 2,000. So kind of the yards around where his line is centered, the standard amount of yards he throws are really impactful. So long story short, middle betting and arbitrage betting are 2 really great low-risk betting strategies that I love to use on, you know, a weekly basis. So the final strategy I like is called positive EV betting. So it's called positive EV betting, and it just means finding bets with an edge. So I'll give you an example of a play I gave out on Twitter is Nevada team total. I included this in a parlay. If a bet is profitable or plus EV, positive ROI, has an edge, whatever term you want to use, if a bet is profitable, it's going to be profitable in a parlay or as a straight bet. So I played Nevada over 9.5 first half team total. Fliff had this at minus 115. Every other sports book had the over around like minus 140, including Pinnacle. They had the over at minus 141. Pinnacle is known to be a really sharp, accurate sports book. So again, there's millions of odds across sports books. We're trying to zone in on the few rare bets that actually have enough value to justify betting. We're thinking like an investor, like a hedge fund. Right? There's millions of possible investments. We want to zone in on the few investments that have the best projected ROI. So essentially what you'll notice is Fliff, all sports books set their own odds. The market's super fragmented, inefficient. Fliff, they had his under favored, right? They had his under at minus 130, so they had more juice towards the under. Fliff's model had the under as the favored outcome. They had the over at minus 115. Every other sportsbook had the over as a heavy favorite around like minus 140. So this was a very clear, I'm using information in the market, even though Pinnacle isn't a sports book you can use in the US. It's not a book that's available if you're in the US. It's one of the sharpest sports books in the world, so we want to put weight into their odds. They have the over heavily favored as a -141 favorite, so I'm using that information to identify value on a sports book that I use like Fliff. So this is a play that I locked in. I thought the bet had a pretty good, strong ROI or edge, however you want to think about it, so I included it in a parlay. Anyways, we explained a lot of things in this video. I really hope you found the video helpful. Again, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment any questions you have, as well as video ideas. I love helping people make money sports betting. I love giving out my picks every single day. So any types of content you want to see, please let me know in the comments. And again, thank you so much for your time.